Well, everyone, happy Wednesday. This is my promised Wednesday weekly walkabout, and there is definitely a cold front moving in. It's been fairly nice the past few days, though windy, but today I think there's a cold front moving in, and we're supposed to get down into the teens later this week, so I'm going to have to bring in some plants. But I thought I would do a walkabout of my front porch, which is starting to evolve. I mean, it's kind of a mess right now. Nevertheless, there were some things that I wanted to point out to you. One of those is instant topiary. So if you want instant topiary, then you can use one of these forms. This is just a metal topiary form. Actually, my buddy Linda Kavanaugh from Channel 4 gave me these years ago, and you can see this one is in the process of growing with variegated ivy, and this one over here is pretty much full. You can see that the wind is making it go less than straight up, and I'll have to fix that and trim on it some, but nevertheless you can see now both of these were symmetrical on either side of the porch as you stepped up. This one suffered some damage. I can't remember, and I had to start all over with it, so I am doing that and I'm starting all over. So just ignore my porch here. And here's another example of instant topiary with these two tours, and I really like the way they look. Now these aren't such a much right now, you guys, but I promise you when they fill out, when they get a good feed and I cut them back in the spring, they'll be beautiful. Right now everything is just winter worn and tired, and that much more so because of the ice storm, which I'm beginning to realize now that most of the recovery on the house has been complete, just how much damage there really was to the understory of the front garden. So because of that, I have a bunch of plants here that I am going to be planting here in the next week or so. And yes, as long as the ground is not frozen, you can plant shrubs, and it's not a bad time to do that. This is one of Southern Living plants. This is an Oakland holly, and you may recall that it had a boxwood in it that was completely destroyed in the ice storm, and I've planted some little violas at the base. And this is a lesson, and you're never really sure what you're going to get because these were supposed to be little white violas. They were solid around the perimeter, and squirrels dug some of them up, but they are already starting to bloom a little bit, and they turned out to be a pale yellow, so those may or may not stay as my spring tableau begins. So in the window box, I'm not sure about these boxwood cones because they took a hit as well, and now this window box is going to get really full sun. These are Green Mountain topiaries. I might replace them. I might just kind of see what they do when they start flushing out in the spring, but packed under the surface in this window box are just all sorts of tulips. There's some little violas. There's actually, I think, a few tete-a-tete daffodils, and there's a clematis that I planted last year. I left the tag on so I remember what it was. Again, I'm not sure what's going to happen with this window box because it was in fairly dense shade before with the lamium in the front and some variegated ivy. That is all going to change now that it's going to get more light. But it will give me some opportunities. Now, it looks especially bad right now because it's winter, but it looks like this all of the time this time of year. So I'm not too worried. That's why it's important, I think, to record what your garden looks like when it looks ugly, not just when it looks good. And there are some tulips that are starting to stick their little pointed heads out. Some of you have been concerned that it's too early for them to be doing that. But actually, I always have some tulips up by now, depending on where they're planted in the landscape. Some, because of the exposure to the sun, I face south. Some will come up earlier than others. But nevertheless, I always expect to see them start coming up about this time. They are not damaged by the cold, you guys. In fact, they're really, even if they were in full bloom, unless it was spectacularly cold, I've had tulips in the snow that have been just fine. So they really can handle the cold weather. So don't be concerned about that. If you're new to growing tulips, don't be concerned. Now, what am I showing you here? Well, this is just an assemblage of things. I've got some Dragon Prince Cryptomeria. I'm going to put that in the landscape. I've got some lemon lime Nandina. And you may say, how do I have any more room? Well, I have room because some kind of weather event is always making room for me. So some of my boxwood I think may be irreparably damaged, and I'm going to replace them with some Dragon Prince now that I have a little bit more light. And I will show you that and my methodology once I start planting in the front yard. Now here are some hyacinths that came out of the garage. These don't look very nice. I will obviously have all of this staged much better and much more beautifully, but I wanted to kind of show you it in process. And these tiny little muscari came from Trader Joe's and fit in this basket just beautifully. They're so, so sweet. I love growing muscari in pots. And those hyacinths, I believe, are City of Harlem or Carnegie. Those are color blends, and they'll be in white or kind of a creamy color. Now, I wanted to show you that I keep out, I have found that unless it's really, really cold, and since they are already hardened off to the cold, I leave my rosemaries outside until it gets to be about, let's say 25 degrees, and then I bring them in. But they much prefer to be out here in full sun in the colder weather than they do inside in the dry heat. And this one is even rewarding me with some little blooms on it. So I'll be tending to those pretty soon. They will start putting on new growth. And a lot of this stuff is just waiting in the wings to happen. These are some of those Blue Point junipers that I potted up as topiary. They look rather hellish right now, but they will return to their beautiful blue color and vigor once it gets to be warm again. So a lot of this stuff, stuff doesn't look good, but I'm really not that concerned. Here's another one of those large ones that I potted up in topiary form, and normally those all kind of live together in one location, but right now they were chasing the sun. Ooh, boy, is it cold out here, you guys. There is some dead foliage inside that boxwood. That will all be remedied. And like I say, when I get ready to put these plants out in the landscape, I will let you know. These, I really like both of these because they have a hint of gold. And and I'll put links to these at the bottom, you guys. As a new form that I am kind of a little tease that I'm getting ready to look into this year, I'm gonna do these. You guys are Dragon Prince Cryptomeria. Wanted to show you. They like full sun. They stay compact. These, let me see if there's a tag here. This is Bright Lights. Excuse my fumbling and my cold hands. This is, Night Light Chamaecyparis. This also likes full sun to part shade, and it has great winter color. So these I'm going to find some places for in the landscape. I had to replace much more in the understory of my landscape than I expected to have to replace. So that's why I've got all of this here. And I'll be working on that in the coming weeks. I'm afraid some of these topiary on the front wall did just fine, but some of them were pretty badly damaged. Let me show you this one. Now, what I'll probably do is, and these make me especially sad because I grew and trained all of these. This one was damaged on its backside. So what I'll probably do is repot this into something else and put it in the back to recover. And because these are so prominent on my front wall, I will probably see if I can find one, if I can buy one and replace it. And these are those pretty Hellebore that I got at Trader Joe's, and I'm going to show you where I'm going to end up planting them in the landscape, because they're just going to be beautiful with some more Obsession Nandina that I'm going to plant. And this is another planter, a metal planter that, yes, I found at a thrift store a long time ago. It's just filled with ivy, and I just took a plastic storage container, punched holes in it, and it sits in there very nicely. It's completely obscured when this ivy is in full flush. Again, it may get too much sun now, but I'll just have to wait and see. And then here's a trick, you guys. This conical boxwood has a bare backside. The front side of it, and I'm showing you the backside actually, the front side is fine. It's uniform and pretty solid all the way from top to the bottom. But what I did was I torqued the pot so that this back, what is normally the backside, is getting full sun now. So it will start to fill out a little bit, and then I will rotate it so it gets sun evenly on all sides. And then in this pot, I've got some Asian jasmine and some daffodils it looks like are coming up. And I know all of this stuff just looks really tattered and warm and cold, and that's because it is. But I am very optimistic that pretty soon this stuff will start flushing out, and before you know it, with some warm temperatures, longer days, and a little bit of TLC, stuff will start looking pretty good. So like I say, it's really cold out, you guys, and I'm going to go in. I will put links to these plants below. I think most of them you can buy by Plants by Mail, or definitely start looking for them this spring. You can, I think, find them at Home Depot and independent garden centers. I believe TLC here in Oklahoma City carries them. But these are some of the plants that I'm going to be introducing into my landscape. So, thanks for hanging out with me on this weekly Wednesday walkabout.